Buckle up, Central Texas. It's that time of year again. The Lone Star Gridiron Network is proud to present the Central Texas Huddle with your host, Mike Mahurin, at the mic. This is the time when the lights shine brighter, the crowds roar louder, and every game feels like a battle. Whether it's for a district title, a state championship, or simply to claim bragging rights for another year against the rival school across town. From Cisco to Madisonville, Three Rivers to Brady, and all teams from 6A Giants all the way down to 1A, our Central Texas teams are gearing up to give it their all on the field for their fans. Just imagine the thrill of that first touchdown, the excitement of a game-winning play, and the camaraderie that brings our communities together. This isn't just a high school football podcast. This is the continuing story of Friday Night Lights in Texas. And whether you're cheering from the stands or tuning in from home, this season promises unforgettable moments and heart-pounding action. So, grab your jerseys, paint your faces, and get ready to support your favorite Central Texas high school football teams. Let's make the 2024 Central Texas High School Football Season 1 for the history books. Stay tuned each week for the new report, because we're going to bring you all the highlights, interviews, and behind-the-scenes stories right here. Get ready, Central Texas. High school football is back, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So huddle up, and let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of the Central Texas Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mahurin, on the mic, and this week's show will feature several of the key games from Friday, October 25th, 2024, featuring selected teams in all 6 classifications in the Central Texas region. Plus, we also have an interview with the head coach of the Wimberley Texans, Coach Doug Warren, that you'll want to stay tuned for. Just a reminder, our title sponsor for the Central Texas Huddle is HAP Insurance Agency in College Station, Texas. And they have appointment slots open now for Medicare annual enrollment, and they're also already scheduling new appointments for ACA Marketplace and Small Business Group Benefits open enrollment that begins on Friday, November 1st. Now, since HAP Insurance Agency is your one-stop independent insurance agency for health insurance, Medicare Advantage, supplemental insurance, and small employer group benefits, there's no need to wait until the last minute. Since they're brokers, they have access to all major national carriers, so they can find the plan and carrier that best fits your unique needs. And best of all, you never pay anything for their services. They get paid by the insurance company. HAP Insurance Agency makes shopping for health insurance simple, so you should do like the hundreds of other individuals and small businesses across Texas that have already partnered with HAP Insurance Agency. Give them a try, because they'll treat you right. Now, if you'd like to make an appointment, you can give Holly Pritchard at HAP Insurance Agency a call at 972-897-0814, or you can email at hapinsuranceenagency, that's all one word, at gmail.com. Again, call them at 972-897-0814, or email at hapinsuranceenagency, all one word, at gmail.com. So let's take a look at the games to review for Friday, October 25th, starting with Division 1A, Classification 1A, Division 2. Starting with the Calvert Trojans hosted the Buckholz Badgers last Friday night, and they had a pretty easy time with Buckholz. Calvert did, scoring 53-22. Calvert over Buckholz by 53-22. Next up, we had the Cherokee Indians, the number 6 Cherokee Indians hosting the Pawnee Indians. So we had the Indians against the Indians. It wasn't much of a contest because Cherokee took the win as a forfeit by a score of 1-0. So Cherokee over Pawnee, 1-0 by forfeit. Next, we had the number 2 Richland Springs Panthers going up against the Panther Creek Panthers. And again, just as we saw before, the forfeits were kind of raging last week. Number 2 Richland Springs 1, Panther Creek Panthers 0. They forfeited to Richland Springs. So again, not much of a game there with a forfeit, but it is what it is. Next up, we have Mount Calm hosting Oakwood, and the Panthers came out on the short side of the stick by a score of 7-53 over versus Oakwood. So Oakwood 53, Mount Calm Panthers 7. Next, we have the Trinidad Trojans traveling to Bynum to take on the Bulldogs there. And we had a close game there between the two of them. Bynum pulled away by a score of 36-34 over Trinidad. Next up in 1A, we'll check out some Division I matchups, starting with a home game for the Benavides Eagles hosting the Prairie Lee Indians. Benavides was a good host for Prairie Lee, it looks like, because Prairie Lee came in and just pretty much smacked them down by a score of 67-12. That's 67 for Prairie Lee, 12 for Benavides. Next, we have the Nippa Rock Crushers traveling to Runge to take on the Yellow Jackets. A little bit more of a close game than the other one, but Runge Yellow Jackets 63, the Nippa Rock Crushers 34. So good game by Runge, and better luck next time, Nippa. Next up, we have the Jonesboro Eagles hosting the Lomita Hornets, and Jonesboro was all over the Hornets by a score of 54-8. Next, we have the number 4 ranked May Tigers taking on the Santa Ana Mountaineers at home. And not really much of a contest here for the number 4 Tigers of May. They scored 72, while Santa Ana was only able to manage 8. So they may go up. They may go up in rank later this week. May did, but good game for May, and Santa Ana, better luck next time. Next up, we have the Chester Yellow Jackets at home hosting the Apple Springs Eagles, and this is almost a little bit of a basketball score, with Chester winning over Apple Springs by a score of 84-39. Last in 1A D1, we have the High Island Cardinals hosting the Burkeville Mustangs, and they one of the interesting things about the High Island Cardinals is that it looks like all of their games were canceled up to this game with Burkeville. So you'd think they'd have plenty of time to practice, but unfortunately it had no impact on Burkeville. Burkeville scored 61, shutting out the High Island Cardinals at their home field. So we will hope for better things for High Island's Cardinals going forward. Next up, we have some 2A matchups starting in Division II, and we will start with the Granger Lions hosting the McDade Bulldogs, and this looks like another forfeit. They have the score listed as 2-0, or maybe it was a safety. But fun fact, or I guess not if you're a McDade fan, but this is McDade's 6th straight shutout, it looks like. Which anyway, hopefully they right the ship before the end of the season. Next up, we have another shutout to report. This time, Burton went down to Milano to take on the Eagles there at home, and the Panthers they pretty much took care of the Eagles in short order, scoring 41-0 over Milano. So Burton 41 over Milano 0. Next, we have the Somerville Jaguars going to Bartlett to take on the Bulldogs, and they have the score as 15-0. But I happened to see this on one of the local news stations here in Central Texas last week. There was a long game delay for an injured player who they thought might have some damage to his neck or back. I won't name the player. You can find out online, but I did see something today that indicated that he had been let out of the hospital and he's back home recuperating at home. So that's good news. That's good news. So hopefully Bartlett will win the next one for their injured teammate. Next up, we had a matchup with the Meridian Yellow Jackets hosting the number 1 in 2A D2 Mart Panthers, and the Panthers were all over the Yellow Jackets by a score of 54-0. So number 1 is well deserved for Mart with that kind of a score. Next, we have the Bremond Tigers traveling to Chilton to take on the Pirates in a home game there. Bremond ended up beating the Pirates by a score of 34-14. So Bremond 34, Chilton 14. Last up in D2, we have the Hubbard Jaguars hosting the Frost Polar Bears, and this time the Polar Bears put the Jaguars in their home deep freezer by a score of 44-0. That's Frost 44, Hubbard 0. Next, we move on to the D1 matchups in 2A, starting with Norman G traveling to Corrigan, Camden for a home game against the Bulldogs. And the Bulldogs came out on top of that one by a score of 46-28 over Norman G. Next, we have Groveton hosting the Centerville Tigers, and Centerville were just too much for Grovetown by a score of 52-0. That's Centerville 52, Grovetown 0. Next, we have the Hearn Eagles traveling to Jewett-Leon, High School for a game against the Cougars, and Hearn had a little bit of a difficult time with them, but they still came out on top by a score of 32-21. So that's Hearn 32 over the Jewett-Leon Cougars 21. Next, we have the Bruceville Eddy Eagles traveling to Rosebud Lot to take on the Cougars. And Rosebud Lot silenced the Eagles by a score of 47-0. A lot of shutouts in this D1 division this week. Ending with the Riesel Indians traveling to Marlin to take on the Bulldogs at home there. And Marlin defeated Riesel by a score of 20-0. So Marlin 20, Riesel Indians 0. Next up, we're going to take a look at the 3A division here, starting with Division 2 in Central Texas. Starting with a home game for the West Rusk Raiders against the Troop Tigers. This was a super close game all night, but Troop ended up pulling it out at the end by a score of 25 over West Rusk 23. So real close game, real exciting, and congratulations to Troop for pulling out the victory. Next up, you have the ARP Tigers traveling down to Winona to take on the Wildcats at their home field. And ARP won the battle of the Wildcats, but the Tigers of ARP 54, the Winona Wildcats 28. Next, we have Blanco taking on Lexington at home, and Lexington came into this game ranked number 4 in Class 3A D2, but Blanco surprised them. Blanco put up 38 points against them, against Lexington, and the Eagles were only able to come back with 28. So big upset for Blanco by a score of 38-28 over the Lexington Eagles. And as I said, Lexington came in at the beginning of the game ranked number 4. They're now ranked number 9. So that was a big drop for them. Next, we have the Nixon Smiley Mustangs hosting the Dilley Wolves, and Dilley came in and laid a dilly of a score on the Mustangs by a score of 50-15. So Dilley 50, Nixon Smiley 15. Next, we have the San Antonio YMLA Lions traveling to Cotulla to take on the Cowboys. And the Cowboys, these Cowboys actually did beat the Lions pretty handily by a score of 35-0, which was not the score of the Lions versus the Cowboys up in Dallas a few weeks ago. Last, we have a home game with the number 3 Poth Pirates taking on the Natalia Mustangs coming up to visit, and it was really no contest. Poth Pirates 54 and the Natalia Mustangs 6. So not much of a game there, but that's why Poth is number 3, I guess. Now going on to Division 1 in Class 3A, we start with a home game by the Crockett Bulldogs against the Huntington Red Devils. Crockett just shut out the Red Devils by a score of 46-0, 46-0 for Crockett over Huntington. Next, we have the Diboll Lumberjacks traveling to Fairfield, and the Lumberjacks pretty much chopped up the Eagles into small pieces by a score of 34-14. That's Diboll 34, Fairfield 14. Number 6, Palestine Westwoods Panthers. They hosted the Tig Lions, and they ended up beating Tig by a short margin of 42-36. Next up, we have the number 9 Franklin Lions coming. Well, actually, last week they were unranked, but they brought in the Dick McGregor Bulldogs for a home game and really gave them a lesson in football by a score of Franklin 66 to McGregor 10. As I said, Franklin was unranked coming into the game, but they are now ranked number 9 in Division 1 of Class 3A. Next, we had a real showdown last week of 2 highly ranked teams. The number 1 ranked at the time Columbus Cardinals traveling to the number 3 Hitchcock Bulldogs, and this was a real nail biter. And actually, Hitchcock came out on top by a score of 37-36, and that's affected the rankings for both of those teams because Columbus dropped from the number 1 ranking to number 4 today, and Hitchcock rose from number 5 to number 3. So good job there, Hitchcock, and keep up the positive work. Last game in Class 3A, Division 1 that we're going to be taking a look at is the Little River Academy Bumblebees traveling to Troy to take on the Trojans. And the Trojans ended up on the top end of the score by a score of 59-28. That's 59 for Troy, 28 for Little River Academy. Next, we're going to start with Class 4A, Division 2, and along with that, as I mentioned in the open, we're going to share the press conference with Wimberley head coach Doug Warren. That press conference is hosted by Chris Daly of the Lone Star Gridiron Network. So we'll be back right after that interview finishes.
All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Doug Warren from the Wimberley Texans. Coach, how are things?
Things are going well for this Monday. How about yourself?
Can't complain. And yeah, it looks like things did go pretty well against Gonzales, 59-10. Talk to me about that one.
Well, I thought we came out and they first drive we went down, kicked the field goal, and they got the ball, and they drove down and converted some third downs that we had a chance, opportunity to get off the field defensively, and we didn't, and that was a little bit disappointing. But hats off to them. I mean, they're the ones that made the plays to extend the drive, and then they come right back, and we didn't field the kickoff, which is disappointing because that's something that we knew was coming, and we just didn't execute it very well. And so, they got on us, but from that point on, we kind of locked in and then got after them physically. We were able to throw the ball, move the ball on the ground, both of those things, and did some good things, and we were able to get out there with a win.
Definitely, and I'm assuming some backups got some time. Yeah,
no doubt. We got some valuable time for some of those kids, and you look at our backup quarterback, Jackson Parker. He got to play quite a bit in the second half, which was good, and we were able to, not just play and hand the ball off, we were able to get him in there and execute our offense and make throws down the field, and so that's what we need. He needs more of that because Cody gets the majority of the snaps, but he's one play away, and so we were thankful that we got an opportunity to get him some snaps in there.
Yeah, definitely. A while back, it was probably 10 years ago, Jason Herring caught a lot of flack for what looked like running up the score. And his answer was, look, my kids need to be able to go a full game, or my backups need to get some real-world practice, so I can't just stop playing, right?
Yeah.
And is that kind of similar?
Yeah, and you see, I get both sides of it because I've been on the other end of that deal. But I look at our kids And, those kids that got the playing time in the majority of the second half or into the fourth quarter, those kids deserve to get an opportunity to make plays and execute our offense that we asked them to. And so, we're going to do that. And we had a running clock, during that the whole last quarter, so that did, it shortened the game some, but still those kids, they come to practice every day and they deserve to get that time as well. And we ask them to execute our offense and defense, and we're going to give them those opportunities.
Yeah. And you really never know come 3 rounds into the playoffs if you're going to need some of those kids to step up.
Exactly. They're one play away from being an every down player.
Yeah.
And so you have to know, number one, do they know their assignments? Can they execute? Can they make plays? Those types of things, because you got to have them ready at the drop of a hat. Yeah,
definitely. So coming up, you've got Smithville this week, and then Lago Vista for what looks like a district championship. How do you get the kids not to look past what could be a trap game with Smithville?
Well, this group is pretty. We got some good seniors on here that have been around for a lot of games. Mm-hmm. And they, typically they're locked in pretty good. That's one of the things we preach to them all the time. We're just going to, take it day by day and try to get better. We try not to worry about our opponent too much. Although we're going to give them, scouting reports and game plans and all that. But more than anything, we want them to execute what we give them at a high level, both sides of the ball. And if we can get them to do that, if we can get them to just lock in and just, worry about this play, right, doing it the best I can, and then we'll go to the next one. And that's, then typically you're not looking, at your opponent. You're just trying to get better, and that's kind of what we've focused on. Got
it. And speaking of scouting reports, what do we know about Smithville, and how do you beat them?
Well, they're a young team. I said this last week about Gonzales, and you look on their roster, and they've 10 or so sophomores, a couple of freshmen up there, and so new coach with Coach Newman this year is doing a great job with them. So, the thing that we have to do, number one, you got to limit explosive plays, and that's something that we had too many against Gonzales. We let them have some explosive plays, and we can't do that. Got to cut down on those, and so limit those, put pressure on the quarterback. All right, and then you flip around offensively. We can't turn the football over. That's something that we've been preaching, and we've been pretty good about the last few weeks about not turning it over. Got to continue that trend, and then just execute things at a high level.
Definitely, and you mentioned that they have a good coach, and you see that from coaches all the time. They all say, "Oh, they have a great program, great coach." And a lot of the fans think that's coach speak. Just you don't want to create any bulletin board material. But talk about how it actually is different in Texas, and there's a brotherhood, and you guys do like each other.
We do. I mean, it's there is a brotherhood, and in the off season we're sharing ideas. We're talking to each other. What do you do in off season, or what do you do against this, that? And we go to clinics, and we'll run into each other, and we'll talk football. You're always looking for a way to get better, and every coach is willing to share ideas and things that they do. And so the other thing too is when I talk about, as a good coach, it's easy to see when you put on film.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I pop in the tape, in Smithville, and so this weekend, Saturday, I threw in the tape of Smithville, and I had seen them a little against some other common opponents, but I hadn't been focusing on them. Okay, so I'm focusing on the other teams, but so this weekend, focusing on Smithville, and you just look at them and the things that they do, and you can tell that they're coached well by the things that they do and how they're trying to attack you. All right, you look at do they play hard? All right, those types of things, and those are easy to see on film. Like I said, they're a young football team that just like any young football team, when you're depending on 10 sophomores, you're going to make sophomore mistakes, and they'll rock along there, and they'll be doing really good, and then they'll have a mistake that hurts them, but they're doing a really good job with that group over there, and we got to go over there, and like I said, you can be beat on any Friday night, so we have to stay locked in and focused and realize that next goal of ours is in our grasp, and our second goal that we have is to be the district champions, and Friday night would be one step closer to securing that.
Definitely. And finally, Coach, how are the kids in terms of health, and how do you make sure you pull back on the reins a little bit to make sure they stay healthy for that title game?
Well, health-wise, we have the typical bumps and bruises for, going into week 9 of the season. Yeah. But outside of that, we're pretty healthy. We may, going into the season, as you look at your offensive line, and like these guys are the ones that we think are going to be our 5 best. Well, that group has played very little for us due to injury, sickness, other things, factors, and Friday night could be the first time in a long time that we have those 5 out there together for an extended period of time, and so it'll be good to get those guys out there and see what they can do and see if they can continue to get better. But as far as practice wise, we don't really back off. We try to keep the same. We will shorten it as we get a little bit longer in the season. We do shorten it a little bit. That's not go quite as long, but one thing that we feel like for us to be successful is that we have to always be the most physical team on the field, and so you can't practice soft and then play hard. If that makes any sense, So I mean, if you're going to be the most physical team on the field, then you have to be physical in practice, and we have our days and our segments that we go through that we demand the physicality from our kids, and that's what our kids hang their hat on. They love it, and that's what they expect. And I think if we backed off any like that, they would look at us like we're crazy. So that's how we're going to coach it, and that's what we're going to live by.
I love it. Well, again, Coach, congratulations on the Gonzales win. Best of luck this week against Smithville. Hopefully we're talking district title game next week.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Are you ready to take your game to the next level? Whether you're an athlete, coach, or just someone striving for more success in life, the Winner's Workshop is your secret weapon. Yes, this award-winning course has transformed thousands of lives, teaching the game-changing principles of sports psychology that Fortune 500 companies, coaches, and top performers all use to win. The Winner's Workshop, subtitled How Sports Psychology Can Make You a Champion, is now available on CoachTube for a fraction of the original $499 price. The Winner's Workshop will help you master focus, mindset, and breakthroughs to make you a champion. Click on the link in the show notes or head over to LoneStarGridiron.com and click on the ad today to unlock your full potential.
And we're back with more scores, starting with, again, Class 4A, Division II. Starting with the Madisonville Mustangs hosting the Sealy Tigers, Madisonville 38, Sealy 14. Next up, we have the Robinson Rockets hosting Waco La Vega, the Pirates of Waco La Vega, and the final score ends up being Waco La Vega Pirates 35, Robinson Rockets 22. Next, we have the Gonzales Apaches traveling to the number 8 at the time, Wimberley Texans, for home game. And Coach Doug Warren's team came out and put a whooping on Gonzales by a score of 59-10. And with that win, the Texans from Wimberley moved up to number 8, from number 8 to number 6. So great job there, Coach Warren, and great job there for the Texans. Next, we have the Smithville Tigers traveling to Geronimo Navarro to take on the Panthers. And the home team won big this time, with Geronimo Navarro putting up 45 versus Smithville's 15. So Geronimo Navarro 45, Smithville Tigers 15. Next, we have the Pearsall Mavericks at home hosting the San Antonio Moro Minutemen, and had a well-played game here, decided by a touchdown with Pearsall scoring 28 and San Antonio Memorial Minutemen at 21. Next, we move on to Division I of Class 4A, starting with the number 4 Stephenville Yellow Jackets, and they traveled to Lampasas to take on the Badgers at their home field. Stephenville ended up with a win at 42-31 over Lampasas, and they just keep kind of rolling along at Stephenville. The Yellow Jackets are buzzing. Next up, we have the Austin Eastside Panthers traveling to Taylor to take on the Ducks at home. Wasn't much of a fight for the Ducks. They ended up scoring 63 and Austin Eastside 0. Next, we have Austin Northeast hosting the Austin LBJ Jaguars, and talk about being a bad guest. Austin LBJ, number 2 in Division I of 4A. They took Austin Northeast to the woodshed by a score of 85-0. 85-0 for Austin LBJ over Austin Northeast. It's quite a mouthful. Next up, we have the Somerset Bulldogs traveling to Pleasanton to take on the Eagles at home, and Somerset ended up coming out on top on this one by a score of 41-21 over Pleasanton. Next, we have the good old Fredericksburg Battling Billies traveling to San Antonio Kennedy to take on the Rockets at home. And again, another case of being a bad guest. But Fredericksburg, the Battling Billies, put up 66, and they ended up shutting out San Antonio Kennedy. So 66-0 for Fredericksburg over San Antonio Kennedy. Now we're going to move over to Class 5A Division II. Lots of action here and lots of ranked teams that were playing this past weekend. We start with number 3, Alamo Heights, hosting San Antonio McCollum, the Cowboys of San Antonio McCollum. And the Mules pretty much kind of kicked them all over the field, it looks like, by a score of 60-0. Alamo Heights 60, San Antonio McCollum 0. So with that win, Alamo Heights moves up from number 3 to number 2 in 5A Division II. Next, we have a San Antonio battle between San Antonio Edison at home against the San Antonio Lanier Vox, who came in to take on the Golden Bears. And the Vox, still don't know what a Vox is, but they must be something special because they ended up beating the Edison Golden Bears by a score of 49-14. Next, we have Austin McCollum, the Knights, taking a trip down to Liberty Hill to meet the Panthers at their home field. Starting the game in for Liberty Hill at number 7. They have improved to number 6 now because they ended up beating Austin McCallum by a score of 78-57. It's kind of a basketball score, but Liberty Hill, they got it going on, it looks like. Next up, we have a home game with Pflugerville Connolly. The Cougars taking on the Austin Navarro Vikings, and really was no contest there. Pflugerville 55, Austin Navarro 0. So kind of a one-sided affair there. Next, we have Bastrop hosting Elgin at their field, the Bears hosting the Wildcats, and Bastrop almost doubled up Elgin, in fact, by a score of 47-24. Last up in Division II of 5A, we have the Brenham Cubs, number 7 now, but started last week at number 10, taking on the Killeen Ellison Eagles. They ended up putting up half 100, as old Barry Switzer used to say, and they beat Killeen Ellison by a score of 50-28. So that helped improve their ranking from number 10 last week before the game to now they're number 7. So good job, Brenham. Next, we're going to look at the Division I Class 5A matchups in Central Texas. So now we're going to start with those Tigers from College Station A&M Consolidated. They're up with their 8th straight win, it looks like, by a score of over Bastrop Cedar Creek, a score of 86-6. So I guess there's no mercy rule, but anyway, A&M Consolidated continued their stranglehold at the top of the list. They started the game at number 3, and now they're number 2 in state, behind only South Oak Cliff of Dallas. So they're just behind the Golden Bears, and who knows, maybe we'll see a playoff matchup of them sometime in the next few weeks. Next, we have the other College Station team, the College Station High School Cougars, the number 6 ranked Cougars. They went down. They actually hosted Lockhart. Lockhart's Lions 10, and the Cougars scored 56. So that helped College Station move from number 6 to number 5 this week. So after their early season loss to A&M Consolidated, College Station continues to be undefeated. So looking good in College Station for good high school football. Next, we have the Cedar Park Timberwolves traveling to Lake Belton to take on the Broncos at home. And Lake Belton ended up pulling this one out by a score of 28-21 over Cedar Park and the Timberwolves. Next, we have Georgetown Eastview Patriots hosting the Killeen Chaparral Bobcats. Another close 5A D1 matchup with Georgetown Eastview coming out on top by a score of 38-33 over the Killeen Chaparral Bobcats. Last but certainly not least, we have the Laredo-Nixon Mustangs traveling down to the Laredo-Cigarroa Toros home field, and they ended up taking a close one from the Toros by a score of 12-10. So that's Laredo-Nixon Mustangs 12, Laredo-Cigarroa Toros 10. Last but certainly not least, we're going to go look at the Class 6A matchups, and this is all in Region 4, Central Texas, starting with the Coppers Cove Bulldogs traveling to Killeen Shoemaker to take on the Wolves. And the Wolves came out on top of that one by a score of 30-12 over Coppers Cove. Next, the Killeen Kangaroos traveled to Hewitt Midway to take on the Panthers, and the Panthers kind of chewed up the Kangaroos a bit by a score of 44-17. Next, we have number 21 Cibolo Steel taking on the San Marcos Rattlers at home, and in front of the home crowd, Cibolo Steel had no problem with the Rattlers. They ended up shutting out San Marcos by a score of 63-0. That helped improve their ranking from last week at number 21 to now being at number 20. Next up, we have another home game from Austin Vandegrift, and the Vipers were hosting Huddle Hippos. And it looks like Vandegrift dropped out of the top 25 for a bit. They were not ranked coming into the game, but had a strong performance against Hutto, beating them by a score of 38-13. So they are now at number 25 in 6A. Next, we have a battle in Round Rock featuring the home team Round Rock Stony Point Tigers taking on the Round Rock Westwood Warriors, and the Tigers came out on top for home fans by a score of 52-27. Next in the Round Rock series, we have Round Rock McNeil taking on Round Rock Cedar Ridge. The Raiders traveling to McNeil to take on the Mavericks. And again, the home team came out on top on this one by a score of 46-28. So that's the McNeil Mavericks taking on the Cedar Ridge Raiders, and McNeil coming out ahead 46-28. Last but certainly not least, we have a couple of ranked teams, that met together from the Austin area. We had the number 12 Austin Westlake Chaparrals traveling down to the number 6 Lake Travis Cavaliers, and Austin Westlake really manhandled the Cavaliers by a score of 28-16. Austin had come into that, as I said, Austin Westlake came in at number 12. They moved up a spot to number 11, but Lake Travis took a big drop on their loss. They were at number 6, and they are now at number 16. So they got some work to do, but they got a couple of weeks left to go back and climb back up the rankings a little bit. So anyway, that's all the games we have to look at this week. So we're gonna wrap it up here. Remember, have an amazing week, and be sure to head out this coming Friday night to your favorite Central Texas high school teams game. The boys practice hard all week to play these games for their fans and everybody involved with the spectacle that is high school football, like the cheerleaders, the drill teams, the marching band. Even the people in the concession stand, especially the folks announcing the game in the press box, they work really hard to create that full fan experience that everybody loves. Who knows? Maybe I'll be talking about that same game that you saw in next week's Central Texas Huddle. I'm Mike Mahurin on the mic, and I hope you stay safe this week. And I am out.